So to be honest, I kind of got to this point. I was like, I want to take a breath.
Yeah.
Because it feels as though it was doing this in stages. It was getting all the leads and getting to this point, and now it's okay. I did step one.
Yep.
I'm still in kind of like shock, take a breath, reevaluate mode.
Hey there, welcome to Coach Carson TV. My name is Chad Carson. You can also call me Coach, and this is a channel all about investing in real estate, achieving financial independence, and doing more of what matters. In just a moment, I'm going to take you to an interview with Scott Palmer, who is a new investor in Los Angeles in California. He's investing across the country in North Carolina, and you're going to get a look over my shoulder as we do a coaching call where I kind of listen to him and help him out with some of the details of a property that he just got under contract, his first property. So we talk about some of his concerns, some of his fears, what the process was like, what he offered, what the numbers were, and then what the next steps are, because he wants to make sure he can do some due diligence to make sure he doesn't make any big mistakes. And then if that moves forward, how do you close on the property? What are some of those details as well? If you like this type of video, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the little bell so you don't miss anything. We have new episodes that come out every Friday. And be sure to hit the like button and share it around if you like it to help us spread the word on YouTube. Now, here's the interview. Hey, Scott, welcome back to the podcast. Great to have you on again.
Yep. Thank you very much. Excited to be back. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, so this has been fun. I think just to give people the kind of real life time frame context, I think it's been 3 or 4 weeks between each of our calls. So this is our third call. You've been hard at work with life and your normal job as a CPA, and then also this side hustle thing you've been doing, trying to buy a property across country. So
yeah, that's right. It's been a lot more. Well, not a lot more, but it's definitely been a lot of hustle. So yeah.
Well, nice work on that. First of all, just the fact that I think half the time when I'm giving feedback to people, it's just getting the momentum going and it's getting people doing stuff. So you've been doing it. That's great. And I think just in case somebody's just dropped on this call for the first time, let's give like a 2-minute version of where you've come from with your real estate business, just to tell, kind of bring people up to speed.
Okay. So I started from scratch about 3 months ago, maybe, and started with your real estate start school. Did kind of the research of, what am I looking for? Determined, okay, for me, what makes sense is long-term rental. So long-term hold and rent. Figured out where I'm in Southern California. Financially, that didn't make a whole lot of sense for me personally. So then had to kind of pick where did I want to go. Looked up some different factors, settled on North Carolina, started in the Raleigh region, and then kind of moved north to Winston-Salem. Then from there, built a team, have interviewed closing attorneys, real estate agent, lenders, etc. And from that point on, it was just the search was on.
And I think that brings us back to the present. I think that the last time we talked, you did a good job of working. You got your money together. You had your team. You had your agent out looking for properties. You even got rejected on your first offer, which is kind of like a rite of passage. You went through that. But then, I think we had planned on this next call to start saying, hey, you need to generate more leads, and we were going to talk about lead generation. And then you kind of dropped the bomb on me that you'd put an offer in and maybe had something happen. So tell me about that. Let's kind of bring me up to speed on where you are.
Sure, absolutely. So after the last call, was not getting frustrated, but was finding, okay, maybe just the looking at new listings wasn't giving me the opportunities that I could find. I even reached out to you on the side. I said, like, hey, what should I do? What's the timeline? I think your advice was you just keep persisting. Like, persisting was your number one advice. Most people, it doesn't end up being successful just because they give up at the beginning. So with that, the plan was to look into direct mail listing to just generate more leads. Started doing that research. It was a bit more daunting because you kind of have to put the money up front. And I was starting to do the filters, and it was like 1,000 properties, but you have to pay before you can kind of see what the properties are. So there was definitely a lot of work I still would need to put into that. And on the side, I was like, okay, well, I'll keep doing my process of looking up new listings that pop up and kind of filtering through maybe some stale listings that hadn't moved. And one of the ones that popped up was one that had been under contract. It fell through and was now back on the market. And so I had another property I'd made two offers. They'd both gone with someone else. The second one made an offer, and then the same day they were like, yeah, it was on the market. We made an offer that day, and they went with someone else at the end of the day. So it was really fast. But with that kind of rejection again, thought, all right, I'll just send my real estate agent. Here's 3 properties. I just kind of did my last look. Let's just see, tell me what's going on with these. And if not, then I might just take a different route, which was the direct mail. She went out. One was in a not great neighborhood. So we kind of just said, okay, that's what you're there for, to kind of guide me. So we crossed that one off. Another one, it already went under contract. So that one was out. And then this third one, the photos had pretty clear, need for renovations. Like, it just needed a paint job, definitely. But we were like, okay, it's priced a little high, has some obvious need for repairs that we're going to have to build in. Let's just go take a look and see, what else is going on out there.
Yep.
So we set up an appointment, and we got out there, and we were very pleasantly surprised. It was in much better shape than the exterior photos led us to believe. And even the exterior, it just looks like it's weathered wood siding. So it's just kind of a natural weathered look, should be solved with sealing, some repair, and a paint job. So we kind of built all that, put it all in the spreadsheet, and it was like a lot of hemming and hawing. It was sort of the spectrum of the asking price plus the estimated repairs, and the floor of the rental, the rent in that area were kind of the max I'd be willing to go.
Yep.
Real estate agent gave me good advice, just said, why don't we offer, so it was listed for 160. She said, why don't we just make the offer for 150, see what happens. If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be, but at least that's something you are comfortable with. And I was like, perfect. I like that plan. Offered 150 with 1,000 due diligence and 1,000 earnest money, and submitted it, and got the reply that said, would you do 152 counter offer? And I said, this just got real.
Here it comes. This is not pretend play anymore.
I hadn't gotten this far before. So real estate agent called me, and I said, you know what? I'm 99% of the way there. We actually got an estimate while we were waiting. We had gotten an estimate from a repairman. He was working on a house next door, because they had just sold that one and were fixing that one up. We said, hey, can you take a look? What would you quote us if we end up getting this house and doing the repair? Got a quote. It was way lower than I had budgeted in my head. So that was great news. So kind of all signs.
What had you budgeted in your head? I'm just curious what the basic scope of work was.
I was at 10,000 for exterior and kind of 15,000 high level of everything.
Okay, got it. So painting the exterior of the property, doing some cleanup. What other kind of stuff did you anticipate inside?
So inside, it is the carpet. We'll need to see. Kind of need to take another look, but it looks like maybe replace that or see if hay is a deep cleaning like sufficient, but it's a little worn down. It's not in bad shape. It just is lived in.
Yep.
Paint on the inside. you know, maybe in some areas like the closet can get painted. There's some spackle that's been done in the kitchen that just needs some touch up, but the paint on the inside looks in good shape. Could do it if I wanted. But that's kind of from the inside, it looks as though everything would be cosmetic, or do I want to kind of like take this up a level if I need to, not just to get it to rentable, but how nice do I want to make it?
Got it. Has your realtor given you any indication on what, like if you do these cosmetic things, what a full value for this property is? Do you have any guesses there?
For resale or for rental? Okay.
Well, for both. I guess both. Yeah, let's look at both those numbers.
So that was another positive, is she ran a market analysis for me, like for other sales in that area, and they're coming in at 200.
Okay.
Which I was very happy with hearing that response. I talked to again, very happy. It was better than saying you're paying full market value.
Right.
For rental, talked to a project management company, rental management company, and said, hey, for this area, what are the ranges you're seeing? They said 1,200 to 1,500. So, and again, I'm assuming they said, hey, looking at it needs some cleanup. So again, we had the, kind of the obvious exterior issue. And they said it needs some cleanup, but, on the high end in that area, we're getting 1,500, and on the low end, we're getting 1,200.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So looking at somewhere around, like you buy it for one, well, I hadn't even gotten to the punchline of the story, but assuming you can get it for the low 150s, then you put 10 to 15,000 bucks into it. So you have 165, 167 plus some closing costs. So maybe up to 170 grand total. Yep. And then you'll put, I assume you'll be getting a traditional financing, kind of putting a 20% mortgage. Have you thought about that, kind of what that will look like?
Yeah. So have got that set up, and submitted my documents, but I am looking at 3.5%, with 6,000 in closing costs for the loan. I was a little not thrilled about that, because when I got pre-approved the rate a month ago, the rates have gone up since then, which so be it. But I had budgeted 3.5% with lower closing costs. So on my little notepad, my to-do list is I need to go shop around the mortgage. But so that's with 20% down. They would go lower if I put 25% down, but with expected, I would prefer to keep the cash for repairs than putting it into getting a further lower interest rate.
And just rough numbers, if you bought it for 150 with a 20% down payment, that's
like
30,000 down. So you have around $120,000 mortgage.
Yep.
3.5%. What kind of payment does that come out to? I'm sure you've already run the math on that. Yeah.
I did. I think I'm at like 540.
Okay, got it. Cool. So 540, and just for people listening, like we're just kind of doing the rough numbers. I mean, if we were, had even more time here, we could look at a spreadsheet, we could look at some more numbers, but rough numbers. I'm just trying to figure out, if he has a $1,200 rental.
Sorry, $625.
$625. Okay, yeah. Got it. So if you have a $1,200 rental on the low end, and you had even 50% of your rent was gone to taxes, insurance, maintenance, and all that, you'd have about $600 a month left over. So you'd be tight on the low end if you're on the high end. But I mean, that's with a 50% expense ratio. You might be, a little bit better than that. So you're at least going to be break even, or hopefully a little positive on the low end.
Yeah.
If you can get to the $1,500, you might have a few $100, $300 to $500 a month, somewhere in there. So that's just me with my real quick analysis that I would just look at and say, okay, how does that look? And so your main objective here is buying a quality property and in it with positive cash flow. And at least on the surface, it seems like you got the potential on that for this one,
Yeah.
right?
And I don't know how many math nerds are following you, but I was wrong. That was my old spreadsheet with the higher interest rate. It is 546 is what it spits out.
All right, 46.
So
Okay.
apologies. It is, yeah. So correct. And my thought process on that, because I kind of went down this path, was for the initial one, I am going for the single. I am not saving for the home run. I know this isn't a home run, but I was drawn to I think I'm striking or at least ideally in my head, I'm striking a good balance of it is a good home. It doesn't have major issues where like the layout is funky, the foundation, where you still have to do inspection, but like foundation is off, neighborhood is questionable. So I think I have a good home in a good renting area. It's between the two hospitals in the region. It's near the community college. So for a lower positive cash flow producing property, I am getting some of the other benefits that I wasn't finding initially. So I am happy with the balance I struck, with kind of potential appreciation, neighborhood for a long-term rental, and still maintaining positive cash flow.
Agree. I think it sounds good. And so here's where the rubber meets the road. And it's, I think you've done at least from my estimation, a good job of estimating and thinking about things. And your logic makes sense to me. You got your core kind of fundamentals set. Now, is the property under contract or are you still?
I am under contract.
Okay, awesome. So, you got the $1,000 due diligence fee and then the $1,000 earnest money fee. That's done.
I had that sent priority and was tracking it, and they were a day late, and I had people calling me, and I'm texting, and it got delivered today.
So as of us talking, you're under contract.
Correct.
So tell me because I think that was helpful to tell everybody about your analysis of the property. Tell me anything on your mind about next steps. Are there any questions or any ideas, thoughts about what you're going to do between now and going to closing?
Yeah. So my main next step is get the inspection done. So I think I guess my three steps are inspection, get the financing, approved, appraisal done, everything the bank needs. And then talk with a property manager of what do you think I need to do in order to get this rented ASAP? So inspection, potential repairs, money.
That's it. Exactly. And how long of a due diligence period do you have to do all that?
I have a month. So I've got January 21st.
That's great. Okay.
I am happy with that because we were running into some shorter potential deadlines than some of the other offers we had put through. And with the holidays, I was kind of panicking.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the past, I've on the fast end, and this is more for if you're very experienced with and have a contractor who can show up that day. I mean, I've closed on properties in a week, but when you're doing your first deal, you're long distance, there's a lot of moving parts. There's the holidays, there's coronavirus. I mean, 30 days is a nice cushion for you. And so I agree on the inspection. Hopefully you've got your team in place. They can help you get a quality home inspector. And the way I look at a home inspector, even I've crawled under hundreds of properties over my career, and I still hire property inspectors because if they're good, their job is to give you a report. It's documented. You can see pictures. You can see what they're looking at. They're going in the attic. They're going in the crawl space. But more than anything, if they've looked at thousands of properties, they're going to see red flags. They're going to if you're a new investor and you're also not going in person, in your case, they're going to hopefully identify some things that you need to explore more. They might say, hey, that's kind of a red flag there. I saw that thing in the crawl space. Hey, you ought to think about that. And so there might be follow-up inspections to those things that he's concerned about. For example, if they saw, increased moisture levels in the crawl space, you'd want to get like a moisture treatment contractor out there to give you a bid. Or if you had, just other things, the heating and air was a concern, you might want to get an estimate or a plumber. So that's going to be your good first step, along with my recommendation always is to get that structural inspection, and then also have your property manager who's going to ultimately be renting it, maybe managing the remodel for you. Have them go out there and to say, from a rental standpoint, what does this place need to get a certain rent, and what is that certain rent you think you can get? And so you're the end result, like the tangible takeaway you need to get, is a scope of work, which is just a list, an organized list of all the work that needs to be done, and at least one, maybe two or three estimates to do that scope of work and get it done for you. And based on that, you can then basically you're just verifying your assumptions. Your main assumptions were 10 to 15,000 in repairs, and so you just want to say, am I right or am I wrong? If it was, usually my experience has been we're all underestimating a little bit. So don't be surprised if they find some things that are extras, and so you might get to that decision point where you say, oh, there's an extra $5,000 here. Do I continue on? Do I negotiate with the person? And at what point do I walk away? That's going to be the decision point for you.
That has been the thing I have gone to bed reminding myself of is there's skin in the game now, but you are still at a walk away point. I need to keep reminding myself, don't make this a money pit. If it doesn't make sense, to walk away.
Yeah, and in your case, in North Carolina, you have to put a due diligence fee up, meaning for you to tie it up for 30 days, you're putting $1,000 that you could lose. Yeah. But in my estimation, if you did 10 deals that you had to walk away from, I mean, this is ridiculous. If you had to walk away from 9 and the 10th one made you money and you didn't lose a bunch of money on those other 9, that would be a net positive. That's not going to happen. I mean, usually you're going to maybe walk away from 1 or 2, hopefully in your career, but it's okay if you have to do that. So as a new investor, you get nervous. You're like, hey, there's going to be a decision point here. I don't want to walk away from this deal. But I think maintaining that objectivity that you're going to bring third parties in here to help you verify your numbers. The repair numbers are the big deal. The rent number is the big deal. The financing number is the big deal. And then there might be some other little things that come up, like when your attorney or your closing attorney is going to do your title search. So that's going to be, that kind of happens in the background, but that's just, you obviously want to get good title. And all of this stuff is in my closing checklist that anybody listening to this can get through my free toolkit on my website. Just go to coachcarson.com/newsletter. But you, of course, have that as well, and can just, I use that as a guide myself too, just to remind myself, all right, what else I need to do? Financing, insurance, this. So just be sure to use that to help yourself out.
Oh, yes. I will be printing that out and referencing it regularly.
Cool. So what else? I mean, anything, it sounds like you got a good plan. Anything else that's on your mind or you want to chat about or concerned about that I can give you some feedback on?
So to be honest, I kind of got to this point. I was like, I want to take a breath.
Yeah.
Because it feels as though it was doing this in stages. It was getting all the leads and getting to this point, and now it's okay. I did step 1. Yep. I'm still in kind of like shock, take a breath, reevaluate mode. But I guess with, I don't know, I guess like what would a walk away point, or, because the goal was kind of 6% cap rate, which I'm below, and I understand. But, I guess if you could rewind and put yourself in the shoes of a novice, what would your kind of walk away point be?
Yeah. I mean, I like having metrics. So I kind of think about it like an airplane dashboard. That you're not going to have just one metric that's going to matter. Like you want your fuel gauge to be full, you want the barometer to be going, the air pressure to be right, oil pressure. But so you want to have. I recommend 2 or 3. And so for me, and in your case, I think cash on cash return, given that you're going to get a long-term mortgage and you're putting in a pretty significant amount of cash through the down payment and all that, some kind of down payment, some kind of cash on cash return metric that you're happy with is, and what is that number? That's the thing that's kind of person to person. But I wouldn't want to have a cash on cash return that's 5% or 4% or something, because then you could get that kind of thing from just loaning money really safely to people and not having to take all this extra risk of borrowing money and doing all that. So I usually compare, like, what's my lower risk opportunity cost here? And if you could take $40,000 and loan it to somebody at 6% interest, that you could do that all day long without taking all this risk. But can you get a 10% cash on cash return, a 15% cash on cash return? Like those are numbers that I see people shooting for more often. Does that mean that there might not be a case for doing an 8% cash on cash return if you're also getting a little bit more equity above and beyond what you're paying? You're buying it a little bit lower. If there's good appreciation potential, you can make the case that combining an 8% cash on cash return with 3% appreciation plus, you can still make pretty good money. And if you're using your single analogy, I think that's what you need to take into account. It's like, what kind of risk reward level am I taking here? Like, if I'm getting really clear on the risk, I understand that I'm overpaying by another $3,000 to $4,000 from what I thought I was, but it's just reducing this metric over here a little bit, and I'm still comfortable with overall risk. And I think over the next 10 years, I'm going to make my money back. Yeah, that's the kind of calculus I do. It's definitely, there's some set numbers, but there's also the context of what I'm doing right now, what the opportunity cost is, and what the overall, and most importantly, what's the overall risk. Like if I can say to myself, I'm very confident, there's never 100%, but I'm very confident that I'm not going to lose my shirt on this one. And it's not going to be something where I'm doing the biggest risk. And the biggest risks are having bad financing, or finding some big, huge repair that's going to cost an extra $50,000 that you didn't anticipate. And that's just going to blow your deal up. If you can eliminate financing risk and repair blow up risk, meaning there's just some huge foundation issue or some environmental issue that you didn't really know about. The rest of them you might get cut a little bit, you might bleed a little bit, but I've recovered from those and other people have recovered from those if you've bought in the right location with the right financing. So
what would be a financing risk?
Well, if you were getting commercial mortgages where you had a 5-year balloon or a 3-year balloon or something, those are because what happens if 5 years from now we're in middle of a recession and nobody's loaning you any money, and now you've got to refinance and pay that one off. So the fact that you're getting a 30-year mortgage at 3.5% interest, it's that as long as you're positive cash flow today, yes, there's a chance that rents could go down. So so you just kind of do a stress test on that and say, all right, today they're $1,350. What if they went down to $1,000 in some kind of crazy downturn of the market? Could I afford to hold on with my $546 payment? Could I figure it out? That's the kind of thing that I look at as a worst case scenario. And you play with that scenario and say, all right, the worst case scenario is I have more cash in this than I wanted before, and I have a little bit lower cash on cash return. I can live with that. Like that's when you move ahead on an investment.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. When my agent called me with a counteroffer, and I said, I'm 99% of the way there. I need to wait for my wife to come back from her walk, because I just need to make sure she doesn't say, what the hell are you doing? Or, what the heck are you doing? So that forced me to do the worst case scenario. She will ask me the tough questions. And so went through those with her and kind of felt comfortable with that.
Thank goodness for smart partners or spouses, or I'm the same way. Even if my wife's not involved in a deal, or my business partner too. Like I get to, when you can run it by them and they can call BS on you, like, or not. That's a nice. It's a nice, because it forces you to defend yourself.
Yep. And I guess the other question I have is, how do you find the initial getting a tenant in there process? How does that go for you usually?
With a property manager, it's not going to be too tough. You're buying this property in January. So, there might be sometimes there's a little bit of a lull in the winter, but if you're in a typical market, like I'm in a college market. Sometimes it's more difficult to rent stuff in the middle of a semester.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But if you're renting to regular families, there's going to be somebody moving in January, February, and I think the key is just to have your property manager involved as early as possible. So as soon as you buy that property or before, they're going to be looking at it with you. And my property managers, if they're handling the remodel, it's much easier. But even if they're not, I'll keep them informed every week. Here's what's going on. Here's the progress. And then as soon as that property is ready, and they might help you handle the final cleaning, the final walkthrough, any little punch list need to be done, and then they'll stick a sign in the yard, take the pictures, promote it. And from there, it's just like week by week, you want to just keep updated, have a call with them or an email with them just to see how's it going, what kind of leads are we getting. And that's a whole nother conversation, but it's a lot like a sales funnel there too. You want to make sure you're getting enough leads, showings, applications, and eventually a tenant. But that's, I think a good property that's priced correctly is going to rent. That's what I found. And so you just want to make sure you focus on the good property part and then pricing it well. And if you didn't price it well, adjust as needed to find the market.
Okay. That has been my assumption. But it also, having not gone through it before, it's a little scary because it's like, oh, this all rides on getting someone in there. And I haven't been a renter in a little bit, so I don't, I'm not,
There are always a little bit of nerves because this is the entrepreneurship of it. It's like, I've got to get this property rented for this whole business to work. And then when you finally get it rented, you get their security deposit, they pay the first month's rent. Yeah. And even when you get your first check from the property manager the next month, then it's like, okay, I think this is a real business. I got this. All right. You can kind of relax a little bit.
And then how do you find, so I have been using your rental analysis spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I like is I don't know, it's not overly conservative, but it builds in it has a lot of cost assumptions. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at the, key metrics, one of which is, the cash outflow after financing, I feel confident that it's capturing a lot, but I'm assuming cash flow is more like you plug along and you don't have these big capital expenses, and then boom, like, oh, you've got a washer dryer that blew up or something. Like, how does fast forwarding to it's rented, how do you find that usually goes?
Yeah, the biggest cash hits you're going to get, you got it exactly right, are going to be these big items. Like if you have if your appliances go out, that's an $800 item. A refrigerator went out, or a hot water heater goes out. Those are kind of the smaller capital expenses. And then if you have the biggest ones though are like the roof, the heating and air, replacing the plumbing. Some of those don't happen very often. Like a roof should have a life of 20 to 40 years, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. And so those are the kind of things I'd want to ask in my inspection. I'd want to look at the heating and air. I'd want to look at the roof and get an estimate. Like, I just need a rough estimate here. Like, is this thing on its last leg where I'm going to replace it 5 years from now? If so, that's going to be a current. You need to allocate that money now. Like that's part of your purchase price is replacing that roof, even if it's say you have another 5 years. If they say hey, this is a 30-year roof, it looks like it's 15 to 20 years in. Yeah, you need to be estimating. You could allocate maybe 1/10 of that money every year, mm-hmm. and so you just want to make sure you're setting aside some money for capital expenses, which we do in the spreadsheet. Like that's part of, we have a regular repair line, and we have a capital expense line. And how much is that? It depends, but I mean, usually minimum of 7.5% each. Somewhere in there is what I'm seeing. So like 15% between the two of them. In some cases, on the high end, maybe 20% between the two of them. On the low end, maybe 10% between the two of them. So mm-hmm. if I see somebody not allocating 10% to capital expenses and repairs total, I know they're too low. Mm-hmm. Just on my experience. And then if they're around 15% between the two of them, that's good. But you're probably not going to spend 15% every month. Yeah. You might have some months where it's 0, 0, 0, 0, bam, there's another. So it really does go in waves. And so this is where your professional experience as an accountant is really going to help you. Is you tracking that and keeping track of it on an ongoing basis is really important, because you're doing all this estimating up front. Mm-hmm. A year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you want to go back and say, how did I do compared to my estimates in the first place. And that's how you learn this. It's like watching game film in sports. You go back and watch your game film to see how the reality and the theory kind of fit back together.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good point. I'll put that on the calendar.
Yeah. Annual checkup. Yeah. Tune up of the rental property, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, good luck. I mean, this is exciting, Scott. And if something comes up in the meantime, feel free to reach out. But I think you've got your work. Your work that's ahead of you, and just keep that due diligence time in mind, and make sure you understand. You have a conversation with your realtor and your attorney about how that process works and what you would have to do if in case you had to get out of it, what kind of notice you need to give. But those are some things to be thinking about. But I would just focus 100% of my attention on putting that property through a fine-tooth comb and just figuring out everything I can about it in the meantime.
Yeah. Yep. Sounds good. No, I appreciate it as always. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Well, best of luck, and I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
All right, Scott. Hey, if you liked this video about the details of getting started in real estate investing, I think you're going to like my next video, which gives you 5 strategies that I have found are the best ways for new or beginner investors to get started. So check that out by clicking on the link above or in the description below. And if you like this channel in general, be sure to hit the subscription button and the little bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching Coach Carson TV. I'll see you next time.